Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1086, 1086, Saturday, March 28th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so we continue to watch as Trump's approval ratings are soaring, absolutely soaring. He's got a lot of momentum being built up here, and it's all building up to where you can just tell that if and when, I should say when, this coronavirus crisis curtails and things begin to get back to normal and the economy begins to pick up again, you can see where Trump is going to end up with even higher approval numbers. He'll probably go another 5, maybe 10 points, which will put him pretty much in the category of unbeatable. And at the same time, we can see that the media's ratings are falling. There was a poll that was done yesterday. I can't remember who commissioned it, but they were asking... They asked about 9 different groups involved in this crisis that's going on, from hospitals and doctors and the president, the administration, the Congress, the media, the whole 9 yards. The media finished at the very bottom of the pack. They were the only one to come up with higher negative numbers than positive numbers. And that poll also broke down between Republican and Democrat, with only about 25% of Republicans thinking that the media is doing a good job. Now, we know that the ratings have been really high for all the news organizations across the board. Fox has been getting double their normal ratings, and even the others have been getting higher ratings. So people are definitely tuning in. And I think that has a lot to do with what's going on. Is I think so many people never actually listened to Trump, have never actually watched Trump, don't pay any attention to Trump. They just read, they look at Twitter, and they look at the left-wing media outlets, criticisms of Trump, but they never actually listen to what he says or get it directly from him. So I think now with these press conferences he's been doing, people are actually getting to see him and seeing how he's handling the crisis and the things that he's doing, and just the way that he is approaching it. You know, he doesn't seem panicked or rattled. He seems to have a very good handle on understanding the health issue as well as the economic issue, and he's got a hopeful approach to it, a positive sort of mental attitude about how to move through the crisis. He's optimistic while at the same time being realistic. It's like he's doing a lot of things, and a lot that are very good right now as far as the perception, and of course perception is reality in the media world, in the political world, and in a lot of ways in the real world that we live in. So he's definitely connecting with people. I think there's a lot of people who are really, for the first time since he's been president, actually listening to him and watching him and getting things straight from him, as opposed to getting it secondhand, thirdhand through media pundits and obviously the Twitter universe and all those opposed to him. So I think this is probably showing a lot of contrast. People are saying, wait a minute, I see what Trump's saying, and then they'll watch CNN and MSNBC and say, wait a minute, I just watched what Trump said, and what you're saying he said is not what he said. What you're accusing him of saying or doing is not true. I just watched it. So I think more than anything else, he's finally getting a direct contact with people who never really watched him themselves before. And I think that is probably, for a lot of people, I mean, obviously, his Trump supporters obviously listen to the president, read his tweets and all these things. But for a lot of other people who've just been listening to other people and not him, now are seeing this, actually seeing him, and it's drawing this tremendous contrast. They're seeing what he says, they're seeing what the media says he says, and realizing it's not the same thing. And I think that's what's going on here. But I think we'll continue to see his numbers rise as the situation continues to look like it's under control and it's being managed very well. And he's remaining optimistic while producing everything he believes that we need to fight the problem. So generally, I think that explains why his numbers are going up and why the media's numbers are going down. Now, of course, as most of you know, the House did pass the relief bill, and Trump did sign it into law. And so this is, of course, going to help Trump even more, especially once people start getting those checks, Once small businesses start getting that, the markets are going to feel much better. You're going to see the stock market begin to recover. We're still going to have some ups and down days in the stock market. There's still going to be some difficulties ahead. There's going to be some issues probably with inflation in the next year or two when this finally catches up. So there's still some challenges to be overcome here. But the bottom line is, in the near 6-month future, up until probably the election, I think that when this is all said and done, I think people are going to feel pretty good about how Trump has handled the problem, and I think it's going to almost make him unbeatable in November. Now, the reason why there is so much hatred for Trump, and I think I've probably said this before, but I want to say it again because I think this gets lost. I don't hear too many other people say this, but it's become obvious to me for quite a long time now, that the reason that the Democrats and those in the media and so many anti-Trumpers, the reason they hate Trump so much is because he is so effective. I mean, you didn't see him go after Bush like this, Bush 41, Bush 43, or even Reagan to that extent. And it has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, they weren't worried about Bush 41 or 43. They knew that Bush 41 and 43 weren't really going to do anything major to shake up the system or change anything. They were status quo, just filling the shoes, waiting to pass the torch to the next establishment hack. Whereas with Trump, he actually is different. He actually is the hope and change that Obama promised. He actually did the things and is doing the things he promised he would do that got him elected. And most importantly, he is very, very effective. And that is why they hate him. They know because this is not a guy who's just going to sit in there as a shadow president for 4 years or 8 years and just do the status quo because it's just, you know, part of the end of his political career. Trump got into this for a totally different reason. He got into it because he intended to get results. He intended to be successful. He intended to actually accomplish things. And he is doing all of those things and more. And that's the reason why they really hate him on the left, is because he is so effective. And they realize on the left that they don't have anybody that's that effective. Obama was supposed to be their Trump. He was supposed to be the guy that was really going to come in and make the changes and turn Washington inside out and really fix a lot of the corruption and all this. But he turned out to be just another two-bit hack, self-serving hack politician who cashed in after his 8 years, and now he'll go off and become a billionaire, and he will have done absolutely nothing really to change anything. But along comes Trump, and he actually is effective and is actually doing the things he said he would do. That's why he's hated so much. And the Democrats, the reason that they're in such a state of disarray is because they realize that there is no one on in the Democratic field. The closest thing they've got is Commie Bernie, but he simply is not electable. So they really don't have anyone like a Trump, someone who can beat the establishment and then succeed at really doing something good. So this is why you're seeing so much hate and frustration for Trump. It's the fact that he's effective and the fact that the Democrats have nothing to put up against him. They have no hope, even in the future. There's nobody even out there. There's nobody even close that they can think of. That's why they're willing to jump at anything. They're willing to jump at a Bloomberg, at a Bernie, at anyone who will throw their hat there because they're desperate. And this is how we want them, quite honestly. So we should all rejoice in these facts because this is exactly what's happening. Trump is hated so much because he is so effective. Now, the rotten Reverend Clinton, of course, is taking a beating, and so should she, because of the nasty Twitter comments she posted yesterday. She tweeted out a posting from a story in the New York Slimes about how the U.S. is leading the world in the Chinese virus cases. Now, first of all, I don't believe that. I don't believe the Chinese are actually giving us the real numbers. But let's just say that they are, even if they were, and even if those are the real numbers. That's not something that you want to try to make light of, which is exactly what the rotten Reverend Clinton tried to do. She tweets out this link to this story, and then she says, quote, he did promise America first. You know, so naturally that did not go over very well. the cackling old hen was not appreciated by many in the Twitter universe, and she has been taking a beating ever since. I mean, literally getting destroyed for making light of that situation. So again, this is a woman, as I've said many times, with no political instincts whatsoever, and I think she also realizes that as bad as she wants to move in and take the nomination, I think she's realizing that the Democrats just do not want her. I mean, you don't hear her name popping up. She has surrogates out there that keep trying to force it, but no one is biting on it. And now you can see, as Biden is failing, and it's obvious to everyone that he's failing, they're talking about Andrew Cuomo, and he's bad. I mean, go ahead and throw him in there. But when you start looking at his record, it is not good, and Trump would destroy him too. But anyway, I think that it's really eating away at the Right Reverend Clinton, because she just, I think in her mind she doesn't really quite understand how unpopular she is. I really don't. I mean, I think she has a certain group around her that tell her what she wants to hear. That's a bubble world that she lives in, and outside of that, she really doesn't understand what's going on. And so she doesn't understand why people are not begging her to jump in and replace Biden. They're not. No one's begging the Right Reverend to jump in, and she just is probably driving her absolutely nuts, because she's been working very hard on this. Instead, they're looking toward Cuomo, they look toward Bloomberg, they're looking, there's Bernie, I mean, you name it. Some people talk about Michael Obama, but no one is talking about the Right Reverend, and I'm sure it's driving her mad. And it will continue to. I have no doubt that she will try to force herself on the Democrats when there's no other alternative. And that's why I say I think it will be the Right Reverend, because I don't think there are any other alternatives. I have been saying for a very long time, I just don't think that when some serious people in the Democratic Party take a serious look at Biden, they're going to have to say, man, we cannot put this guy out there. I mean, we just can't do it. And they're going to have to turn to somebody. And I think that they'll have no choice but to run the Rotten Reverend around the track one more time, knowing good and well she's going to get her ass kicked. But what they're hoping to do is hold on to the House if they can. I think they had hopes of picking up seats in the Senate, but now I think they're just hoping to hold on there too and not lose any seats. But it's pretty disastrous for the Democrats right now, and they have really badly bobbled everything. And everything they've seemed to do to Trump, he seems to get more powerful, stronger. I mean, he after the Kavanaugh hearings, that was supposed to be targeting not just Kavanaugh but Trump. But he maintained through that. It never really nicked him up that bad. And Kavanaugh got confirmed. They didn't scare Trump away. Bush would have thrown in the towel and said, "Oh gosh, we got to get someone else." Well, Trump didn't. He stuck with Kavanaugh, and Kavanaugh didn't throw in the towel. He stuck in there, and that was a very important thing both of them did. Then, of course, they try the Mueller witch hunt. That fails. That doesn't ding Trump at all. He survives that. Then they try the impeachment. He ends up gaining 5-6 points, and then they try to ding him on this crisis. But again, as we can see, he's actually more popular now than he's ever been. Popularity ratings are rising, while the Democrats and the media are falling. So at every attempt that they try to hit him, he seems to win, and they lose. And we just continue to watch this play out. And ultimately, though, they are going to have to make a decision about who they're going to run, and I can't imagine that they're going to stick with Biden. I just can't imagine them doing that. I don't know how you do that. You can't hide. You can't hide. Your nominee for president, the guy running for president. You can't hide him, and that's what you would have to do. You can't put him out there. He will crucify himself. So someone's going to have to make a decision, and I think the Right Reverend sees what I see, which is that there really is no one else out there that you would take serious. I mean, they can try a Buttigieg or Klobuchar or Warren or someone like that, but I think with so many people in the establishment mix in the Democratic Party that are Hillary people, they're going to say, well, Hillary's better than all those people. And that's probably true. As bad as it sounds, it's probably true. But that's what's going on there. The Reverend Clinton taking a beating again for a disastrous tweet that is, again, plays right into the hands of the Chinese. And by the way, has anybody heard about any demo commies complaining about Trump's wall recently? Anybody complaining about the wall? Anybody complaining about Trump's immigration policy? Anybody complaining about Trump talking about how China has been eating our lunch? Major issues he campaigned on. And now we're seeing how those issues, immigration and China, are playing a huge role in everything that's happening right now with this coronavirus. Makes it look like he had a crystal ball. Nope, you don't hear a lot of people complaining about his wall right now, his immigration policy, or his approach to China. Nope. Because they know he's being proven correct. And a lot of Americans are waking up to that fact as well. Well, we learned that Boris Johnson has coronavirus. That's not good. We certainly hope that he gets treatment for that and recovers just as soon as possible. But I certainly hope this causes Boris Johnson to rethink this deal for this 5G network with China. I certainly hope this changes that conversation. But yeah, hopefully he gets well soon. Well, what can we say? Another Burisma Joe update. What more can you say? Well, let's cover the last 2 days of gaffes. Let's see. We, of course, talked yesterday about the old rape allegations or sexual assault allegations, although I do believe that technically speaking, when you penetrate a woman with your fingers or any other part of your body, that is considered a rape, if I understand correctly. So sexual assault's one thing, but when you actually penetrate a woman's vagina, that's considered rape. And that's what the allegation is. What's very interesting is that ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, MSNBC, CNN, none of them want to talk about this, even though supposedly we're in the era of the Me Too movement and every woman must be believed. Every woman must be believed, unless, of course, they're accusing a Democrat. Now, can you imagine if this was a claim against Trump? It will be 24-hour, round-the-clock coverage. This woman will be all over every one of these networks. But because it's Joe Biden, they're going to try to tone her down. They're just pretending, just Google CNN and Tara Reid. Google MSNBC Tara Reid, ABC Tara Reid, CBS Tara Reid, PBS Tara Reid. You won't find them doing any stories on it. It's not even on their radar, and they know all about it. They're suppressing this. They're suppressing this information. Now, at some point, when they want to take out Biden, this is going to come in handy. But there's obviously a fight going on within the Democratic establishment. Those who feel like there is no one else, they got to roll with Joe. That's the choice that's been made, and they don't want to, I guess, upset the apple cart anymore, create any more confusion. But there's obviously people on the other side who realize that you just can't run this guy. So there's obviously a lot of, I would think, a lot of serious discussion going on about what to do right now. And I don't think that they've decided what to do. I think it'll become clearer to them when this coronavirus is over and people go back to focusing on Biden and Trump and the election. That is when I think they're going to have to make a decision on what they're going to do. And I don't think they can roll with Joe. But anyway, we have these allegations, these sexual assault allegations, which, she made these allegations back in '93. She had issues. Now she's doing it again, and she's getting out there. It's certainly all over Twitter. It's certainly all over social media. But the mainstream is not, and the corporate media and the cable news, left-wing cable news media is not really talking about it. But I don't know how much longer they can keep the story down. We'll just have to keep following this. And I don't know if her allegations are true or not. I don't know. But generally, you're going to air them out. You're going to get her statement. You're going to investigate the facts around her statement, see if they add up, if they make sense. I mean, think about how the media treated the allegations against Kavanaugh or any of the allegations against Trump. But they certainly do not give the same type of seriousness or investigation or interest in looking into what happened here with Burisma Joe. And I don't think it's any secret why. So we have some more gaffes from Quid Pro Quo Joe. Of course, probably it didn't help having Joe Rogan come out yesterday and say that Trump's just going to beat this guy to death. Everyone knows that. But remember, Joe Rogan has the largest podcast in the world. And he at once was so-called credited for giving a so-called endorsement to Bernie, although I don't think he was really giving an endorsement to Bernie. It was just Rogan saying, oh, yeah, I don't know. I guess I could vote for the guy. I don't know. I don't think he was, I don't think Joe Rogan's very political, to be honest with you, left or right. He's not a party guy. He just kind of says things a lot of times. And, I don't take too much of his political analysis that serious. He's good at what he does, but I don't think what he does is political analysis all that much. But certainly when he tweets out, something like that, a Joe Rogan tweet goes a long way. And it does pick up some a lot of steam as it goes. So anyway, we have that going on, but we also have more brain farts from Burisma Joe. Of course, he tripped over his words yesterday and referred to himself as Barack. Then he's on Jimmy Kimmel. He's on Jimmy Kimmel, and he's joking around about Jimmy Kimmel's hat. And so Biden puts on a Philadelphia Phillies hat, in which case Kimmel makes a joke about that. And Biden responds by saying, yeah, well, I wear this hat because I do it to get my wife to sleep with me. He wears his Philadelphia Phillies hat to get his wife to sleep with him. Well, that's not good. Of course, not a single question by Kimmel about the sexual allegations against him, nor will you see any of that. But I think, as everyone agrees, it's a total disaster. I can't find a single person out there watching these so-called podcasts that Biden's doing. I can't find a single person who thinks that he's doing a good job at this. I mean, every single time he does it, he stumbles over his words. He doesn't seem to have any clear idea about why he's even doing the podcast. It's just he's mumbling and bumbling and trying to read from note cards, and it's going horribly bad. And again, I just don't know how much longer this can go on. Another thing that's quite humorous is that he's got a YouTube channel now, and he's got all these professional people around him. His video, the one I looked at 2 days ago, only had about 700 views. 700 views. His biggest video, the one he did the first day when he launched it, only had 2,000 views. This is a guy running for president. He was the former vice president. I mean, you think a lot of Democrats will be tuning in to hear what he has to say with all this going on with coronavirus, yet he can't get 700. I mean, I looked at Google Analytics for that day for my videos. I had about, I had about six times the number of real views on my video that day than he did. And I'm just a guy with a video camera and no professional staff at all. No one even has heard of, right? I'm not famous or anything like that. So that just tells you how bad it is for Joe Biden. I have a bigger platform than he does. That is sad. That is really sad. Now, before we finish up today, I just want to mention that Papagalopoulos did an interview on his podcast with Aaron Mate. Now, I like Aaron Mate a lot. I think he's a good, honest journalist. He's a lefty. He's a Bernie Sanders supporter. But I like Aaron Mate on a lot of things, particularly on Russiagate. He's done a lot of good work there. So I do follow him from time to time. And he's an honest liberal, so I can deal with that. But just wanted to bring up a couple points that they covered on that podcast. Not so much new stuff, but stuff that's I think was keyed in on in this particular interview. And you might want to watch it if you like Aaron Mate. or Papagalopoulos. You might want to check it out. So Papagalopoulos is talking about Downer and the fact that he knows for a fact that Downer was recording him, and he told this. It's in his statement. You can read it. That he gave to Congress when he was interviewed by Congress. Made it perfectly clear that it's obvious he was being recorded, and Papagalopoulos is convinced that there is a recording of that interview or that conversation with Alexander Downer. He's convinced that that does exist. He says he's never actually seen it, but there's been a couple of members like Ratcliffe and Meadows and Gowdy who have suggested things that sound like there is a copy or a recording, or that they've heard or seen this recording that Downer did with Papagalopoulos. That's something that we've talked about a lot, but it's just never been confirmed, and it still isn't really 100% confirmed. But now I think that it's more than likely that that is the case, and I hope we'll eventually find out. It was not in the Horowitz report, and or if it is, it was not included in the report, or it's blacked out or something. But that was never really confirmed or denied in the Horowitz report. But Papagalopoulos also says that it was 2 days after Durham interviewed Alexander Downhatch Downer that Durham announced, or the DOJ announced, that the Durham investigation had become a criminal investigation. 2 days after Durham interviews Downer, the AG says, hey, the Durham investigation is now a criminal investigation. Now, I never really tied those dots together. I know it was the day or two after the IG report came out that was announced. So I'm not sure what the date was of the Downer interview. I thought it was earlier than that. So I don't know if Papagalopoulos got confused, or if I'm confused. I'm not really sure. One of the two. One of us is confused. Because they came out and announced, the DOJ came out and announced that the Durham investigation was now a criminal investigation about 2 days after the IG report came out. I believe that Durham interviewed Downer much earlier, late summer, early fall, like September range. So I'm not exactly sure, but you can watch the video for yourself and see what you make of it. I went back and tried to look at the video, that interview with Downer, where he's talking about the fact that he's been interviewed, and it was definitely during the late summer, early fall. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe I missed something. But anyway, I guess we'll eventually find out. It's not a hugely important fact, but it's just, I'm curious. Another thing that Papagalopoulos points out is that they make a big deal about arresting him and saying it's because of what he said to Downer, which was a conversation they had on May the 10th of 2016. But as Papagalopoulos, and actually I think it was Aaron Mate that points this out, is actually on May the 6th, 4 days before Papagalopoulos has that meeting with Downer, it was Judge Napolitano who went on Fox News and said that the Reverend Clinton's private server was likely hacked by Russia and probably even the Israelis. And it was 4 days, and then it became really big news. People started really talking about, oh, you think the Russians got Hillary's emails? And then that's when all that started. It was 4 days later when Papagalopoulos mentioned that to Alexander Down the Hatch Downer, which again may explain why Papagalopoulos says he doesn't recall saying anything to Downer about that. This may explain where Downer got that. He didn't get it from Papagalopoulos. He got it from the fact that it was now a big talking point worldwide because of what was said on Fox News, got picked up, and everybody ran with it. So that's an important fact, and I think at the time we probably even talked about that. But the question you would have to ask here is that if it was Papagalopoulos saying something to downer about the Russians having Hillary's emails, and he was arrested and charged and put through all that crap, why wasn't Napolitano? I mean, Napolitano said it 4 days before Papadopoulos, and he said it on national TV that the Russians likely hacked the private server. But Napolitano, as far as we know, was never questioned, certainly wasn't arrested or charged. So that's a very good question. Of course, we all know the answer. But I found something else to be interesting that came out of that interview I've never heard before. Was that Papadopoulos said that right after he was arrested, he had wanted to hire this lawyer. And that he said that Mueller and the Mueller team would not allow Papadopoulos to choose his own lawyer. Not only that, they put a gag order on him, wouldn't let him talk, and would not allow him to set up any type of a GoFundMe or go out and try to raise money or do anything. He was essentially put under a gag order, just like Flynn and a lot of these other guys. And of course, that kept him from raising money for a legal defense or even getting his side of the story out there while he was being smeared in the press as some sort of a Russian agent connected to Putin, and of course, then they tried to draw the conclusion whether or not, he was giving this information to Bannon or someone in the Trump campaign. Of course, we know to this day that he says he didn't, and there was no evidence that he ever did. So that, again, these are tactics. I certainly hope that Durham, as he's looking at this, takes a look at these tactics that were used, because they weren't, these are not tactics that are typically used. They were used on Papadopoulos, they were used on Michael Flynn and Roger Stone for a reason. Paul Manafort as well, for a reason. They didn't want these guys talking. And it's because of what they were doing and why they were doing it. This, to me, is the reason why Durham could go for criminal charges against Mueller and that whole team of cronies. It's not so much what they did, because they have certain protections as special counsels working for the government doing an investigation. It's really hard to get at them. But if you can show that they had motives that were of a criminal nature, then that is a totally different set of circumstances, and it would put them in the crosshairs for possible prosecution. And I do believe, as I'm sure many of you believe, that Uncle Bob the Executioner, the Hillary donor posse, were a big part of the coup. And the way that they did, it's not so much what they did, it's the way that they did it and why they did it. To me, tells you everything you need to know about whether it was business as usual for special counsel or whether there was something extraordinary going on here, and it was extraordinary of a criminal nature because the intent of what they were trying to do, the motive and everything else. And I think, and I should say I hope, that that is what Durham will look at, and I do hope that when these indictments come down, it will include people on that Mueller team, particularly Wiseass and some of these others, Zelensky and some of these people. Alrighty, well, that's all we have for today. That's all the time we have. Hopefully everyone is staying healthy out there. Hopefully you're doing well, and hopefully we'll get through this thing here pretty soon and get back to life as normal, and hopefully we can start talking about something other than coronavirus. Have a good day. See you guys. Bye.